Papworth. The safety car, the BMW, peels its way in towards the pit lane. 40 minutes are on the clock, and we're about to get our first race of 4 today underway here at Brands Hatch. Red lights are on the gantry, and as the cars trickle their way towards the start-finish line, lights go out, and already Andrew Windmill was looking to try and make progress, but decided he wasn't going to try and squeeze his way through and ahead of Nigel Ainge. It's going to be Richard Wheeler around the outside that takes up the lead of the race, and up to second comes Gary Barlow by the look of things. Nigel Ainge down to third, could well be down to fourth, and indeed it's down to fourth as Andrew Windmill picks his way through on the run-up in towards Druids Corner. So Nigel Ainge, who celebrated his 80th birthday earlier on this week, it will without question say he's not the quicker of the two. He will drive as quickly as he can, knowing full well that when he hands that Honda Integra over to Danny Casar for part 2 of the race, Danny will really make it come alive. Yeah, absolutely. Adam Brown without a rear bumper, so clearly something has gone on in the interim between qualifying and the race for that change to be made. A big lock-up from Shaun Bellamy. That almost washes him wide and now leaves him vulnerable to Shaun Ely. So as David Bellamy, pardon me, with that big lock-up in towards Surtees, you wouldn't have thought it's a massively heavy braking zone, but over the line to take the first lap in the book, Richard Wheeler. He's already trying to spar away with Andrew Windmill. Yep, so the two of them head up towards Paddock Hill Bend, with Richard Wheeler leading the way from Andrew Windmill in second position. Everybody else just trickling their way over the start-finish line now, so some battles already beginning to form, including James Wilson, who's having a good little squabble at the wheel of his Peugeot with Ben Urin, I think that is. But the race leaders are up towards Druids, and it is still Richard Wheeler that's leading the way, but it's having the pressure applied from Andrew Windmill, who clips the curb and the apex beautifully at Graham Hill Bend and heads along the Cooper Straight in the second place, trying to hook down the lead. They do indeed, and Andrew Windmill, he's just, I think, biding his time here, but he can't afford to wait too long because he does have that 60-second penalty to be served alongside the 1 minute and 30 seconds he would already have to serve in the pit lane, and especially at a short circuit like Brands Hatch, it will cost you very, very dear indeed. But over the line now comes Richard Wheeler. Andrew Windmill's looking to the outside on the run towards turn 1. You've got to be very brave to try and make it work. The pair of them hit the brakes at the same time. Andrew Windmill all the way around the outside, locks the rear, the inside rear, and that just puts the car out of shape on the running towards the apex at Paddock Hill Bend. He gets the moment collected up, but all of that hard work has come undone. Gary Barlow's within touching distance, so too is Nigel Ainge. Adam Brown is slowly starting to fall away and potentially back into the clutches of Steve Papworth. In the mid-pack, there's some brilliant battles going on, but unfortunately we do have a car into the wall at turn 1. That looks like potentially Harry Hayler, unfortunately, the number 4 machine in the barrier, and he has made contact with not only the tyre wall but has then deposited the car into the gravel. So double waved yellows, marshals on the scene already. Yeah, that may well need a safety car to get him out of harm's way. There's quite significant damage to the front of the Renault Clio. The marshal's just with him at the moment, and they'll wait for that sort of thumbs up from the driver just to confirm that he is okay. So double waved yellows up at Paddock Hill Bend. No overtaking allowed there at the moment as the race leaders head up to that point of the circuit. Richard Wheeler leading the way from Andrew Windmill. Gary Barlow then third. Nigel Ainge in 4th place. Adam Brown 5th, and Steve Papworth completes the top 6, but not unsurprisingly, because of that incident up at Paddock Hill Bend, out comes the safety car. You can see the big tyre marks, can't you, for where he locked up going in towards there. Will open, I'd imagine. Yes, for those at the front of the queue, however, they might not get there in time if we're doing sort of 1 minute 57s at the top of the safety car period. It could be halfway down, all of a sudden the pit window opens. I think you're right, yeah. I think with where the race leaders are at the moment, just at the end of the Cooper Straight and going through Surtees and up towards McLaren, I don't think the pit window's quite going to be open when they get towards pit lane entry, which means that, yeah, they're going to have to stay out for a further lap, but those that are further down through the queue will have gone through the first 10 minutes of the race and the pit window will be open. And it's also down if you've got a timer in your car. If you press start, if you've pressed it a couple of seconds too early, you could trick yourself into coming in when the pit window isn't actually open. So let's have a look. We've still got, yes, there's 15 seconds before the pit window opens. If you're at the tail of the order, absolutely brilliant. Dive in now and see where that may leave you. For those that are already coming over the line, have we had a couple dive in? Shaun Ely's dived in. When's he going to break the beam? He can't break it just as yet. Now the pit window is open, and now Shaun Ely appears in the pit lane. James Wilson has done it as well. I think James Wilson has absolutely nailed that perfect time to come in. Shaun Ely. That was brilliant judgment from them to come in. Yeah, literally
judgment or fluke yet to be decided.
A couple of seconds after the window opened.
Yeah, so brilliant from Shaun Ely. James Wilson as well, absolutely nailing it into the pit lane.
And another one gets in, but if you're driving solo, yeah, just leave the engine running, let it sit there. It's a fairly warm day, and down pit road, Shaun Ely heads down pit road. James Wilson also exits the pit lane as well, and as they exit the pit lane, both stops were the right side of the minimum period of 1 minute and 30 seconds. It was 1 minute and 33 for James Wilson. It was 1 minute and 36 for Shaun Ely. And now into the pit lane, we see everybody else head in.
Yes, and I don't know whether Gary Barlow has potentially seen that coming. He's seen how busy it's going to be. He knows he might be pull into his pit box, sit there, but then realise he can't get out because there's a field of cars that have parked around him. So if he stays out an extra lap, he can find himself in a slightly clearer pit lane. So, I mean, fairly clever driving from Gary Barlow. Of course, he's still yet to hand over to...
That's the wrong side of 1 minute 30. It might be rather draconian, but there will be a penalty applied at some point.
Yeah, safety car lights are off. We'll go back racing this time. And effectively, it's going to be John Baker that is leading this race. Of course, yet to pit by way of pit stoppers. Shaun Ely and James Wilson, who nailed their time into the pit lane, will be going over the line in the lead of the race. But now John Baker comes into the pit lane, so the first car to come through will be the 163 machine of Luke Johnson, but leading the way is Shaun Ely ahead of James Wilson. And we need to keep an eye on Danny Cassar, because he's going to cross the line in third place and is a lap ahead of his closest rivals.
He is, yeah, he has absolutely nailed this. We could also see that getting on with it straight away is Danny Harrison at the wheel of the Ford Fiesta that he's taken over from Richard Wheeler. So those cars threading their way through traffic. The overall race leader, though, Shaun Ely, heading out of Druids, hasn't as yet overtaken that Ford Puma that is ahead of him in the hands of Luke Johnson, but he should be able to pick that off, I would have thought, along the Cooper Straight. Here comes Shaun Ely now. Yep, the Peugeot goes past the Ford Puma and places a further lap on it. James Wilson also does the same, so nose to tail for the lead of the race, heading through Surtees, up towards McLaren, on towards Clearways. It's the 205 that leads the 206.
It is for now. I've got a feeling Shaun Ely will be a bit quicker in a straight line. Yes, he is. All of a sudden starts to extend that margin ever more. Coming towards them in the background there, I think, is the number 94 machine. Yes, it is. So Ben Urin will have handed over to Adam Urin, and they're getting closer, lifting up that inside rear wheel on the way through, and now we almost saw a change. Shaun Ely on the inside, it was James Wilson on the outside. On the brakes, James Wilson so much later. They're still going to be side by side by the time they arrive at Druids. They're slowing each other down and leaving themselves vulnerable to the cars behind. James Wilson with his lights ablaze, desperately trying to hold on to the inside, can't keep the nose in, so Shaun Ely just about holds on to the lead of this race, but James Wilson really making it hard work.
Yeah, brilliant squabble between the pair of them. Shaun Ely went through his usual pre-race ritual and just made sure that himself and the car, in terms of a combination, were as light as possible before the beginning of the race. And as he turns his way now through the right-hander at Surtees McLaren on towards Clearways and then Clark Curve, the pair of them are getting caught by Adam Brown, but Adam Brown had that much longer pit stop because of those race wins earlier on in the season, so he might overtake them both, but he's not going to be picking up the lead of the race. So it's Shaun Ely still from James Wilson, but ever closing on them now is number 86 Danny Cassar, who's there in third place in the Honda Integra DC5.
Yeah, desperately trying to find a way through. He's got Andrew Windmill just further up the road. He's got Ben Urin on the inside. He's got Danny Harrison trying to look through there as well. Adam Brown is all involved, so too is Steve Papworth, so too is the car of Alfie Jones. It's a very busy section of circuit, and all of a sudden Adam Brown's trying to go for the lead. Danny Cassar's picking his way through and past James Wilson. Up the inside, Adam Brown gets in front of race leader Shaun Ely. Then it's Andrew Windmill who is chasing down Adam Brown. Danny Cassar's still trying to find his way through and past the car of Shaun Ely. Still involved is Danny Harrison. That is the battle for the lead.
It is, yes. The cars that are third, fourth and fifth over the line now as Danny Cassar goes through and ahead of Shaun Ely's Peugeot, picks up the lead of the race. Danny Harrison follows him through in the Ford Fiesta. Ahead of them both is Adam Brown and Andrew Windmill, but remember, they had longer to spend in the pits, so they are at the moment only just, and I do mean only just, on the lead lap. They've got Danny Cassar, the race-leading Honda Integra, right behind them, but he's got to keep pushing. He's got Danny Harrison's Ford Fiesta right on his boot lid, so brilliant battle, isn't it? Two cars desperate to try and stay on the lead lap, and two cars desperate to try and overtake them.
Yeah, we'll wait and see as to exactly how this is going to play out, because Adam Brown is slightly quicker through the corners, but on the exit just runs out of steam, and that allows Danny Cassar to draw himself level. Up the inside he will go. He's desperately trying to put a car between himself and Danny Harrison. It's worked, because now Adam Brown is separating Danny Harrison and Danny Cassar, so it's allowing Danny Cassar in that Integra just to run away in what is effectively the lead of this race. He's closing in on the very noisy Andrew Windmill as they come over the start-finish line on the brakes in towards turn 1. Danny Cassar with his newly inherited lead. Adam Brown's fighting back at Danny Harrison in the lead of in second place. So Adam Brown, he's effectively been the thorn in the side of effective race leader, and of course there is now a change further down. Go on.
Yeah, just looking at the battle that's going on between James Wilson, followed by then still Shaun Ely, as down in towards Graham Hill. Danny Cassar finally is able to squeeze his way alongside, through and past Andrew Windmill. So Danny Cassar leading the way, and now he's got another car at least acting as a buffer, and a quick one as well. Andrew Windmill between himself and the car that's second in the race, which is Danny Harrison. So number 86, Danny Cassar, leads the way, his Honda Integra. The Fiesta of Danny Harrison is there in second place, number 24. Shaun Ely in the Peugeot 205 is still third at the moment, and the number 234 car of James Wilson is there in fourth place. But this
now comfortable enough with the lead margin he has. Over the line will come Steve Papworth. Just a little bit further back is James Wilson, so he goes through in second place. Peter Parkin continuing to fight with Ben Uren, but will have the number 46 of Stephen Reynolds and John Ridgeon fighting away with them as well. So the Peugeot sandwich made up by Honda Civic Bread.
Yes, it is at the moment. So up towards the braking area for Druids, they will work their way. So Peter Parkin looking to try and make sure he keeps that pesky Honda Civic behind him of John Ridgeon. Ahead of him is the car of Ben Uren that he's been doing battle with. There's another Peugeot, that'll be Miles Mosley, isn't it, that's just ahead of them. Miles is about to get lapped at the wheel of the number 58 car. Where's he's running? He's running in 17th position at the moment, the number 58 car. So lots of back marker lap read still to be done. 3 minutes remaining on the clock. Car number 86, Danny Cassar, still leads the way. Yeah,
and does so comfortably, doesn't he, at this stage in the race. Steve Papworth being, as ever, as aggressive through traffic as he needs to be, just to try and tick yet further laps in the book. As expected, the number 98 of David Bellamy leads Class E at the moment. Shaun Ely still leading Class F by quite some margin. Do we have another Class F runner out this weekend? No, I don't think we do. That would explain that one. Adam Brown, he's worked his way up into 10th place, albeit with a penalty, 5-second time penalty being applied to Adam Brown. So he's worked his way inside the top 10, but I'm afraid that won't stick. However, he is now leading Class C with the retirement of Richard Wheeler and Danny Harrison, and they have worked their way through and past Charlie Ford, who is currently running second in Class C.
So just over 2 minutes still remaining on the clock. Danny Cassar heading along the Cooper Straight. He's going to have a busy section of circuit before too much longer. He's about to catch that squabble that we've been talking about of Peter Parkin, Ben Uren, Adrian Matthews at the wheel of the Volvo, and then Miles Mosley. So our race leader trying to squeeze his way past the traffic. He gets past some of them on the run up towards Paddock Hill Bend, but having got past one horde of traffic, there's an even bigger queue that's ahead of him now that's just exiting Paddock Hill Bend and up towards Druids.
I remember seeing a fabulous onboard video aboard that number 86 Hillwood Auto Honda Integra of Danny fighting his way through traffic at Donington Park, and did so, almost arrived at a massive group, went flying through, and everybody was sort of sat there with their arms in the air as if to go, how have you done that? So very confident through traffic is Danny. Immediately catches onto the coattails of those cars up the road and isn't wasting any time at all. We have seen Peter Parkin not only pass Ben Uren but start to extend the margin. He's not exactly getting close enough to James Wilson with only 1 minute and a quarter remaining, but all it takes is a small mistake from James Wilson and we could see a change for the overall podium. There goes James Wilson. There goes Peter Parkin over the line. There's not much separating them now at all, is there?
There isn't now, and Danny Cassar is closing in on them and is heading on to his penultimate lap of the race this time through at the wheel of the number 86 Honda Integra DC5. So through Paddock Hill Bend, then clambering up towards the braking area for Druids. Still lots of back markers to deal with for our race leader. The next of those is going to be the car that spun Dominic Rose down at Graham Hill Bend a few laps ago. That'll be the next car that Danny picks off, and he does that on the run down in towards Graham Hill Bend. And then he might pick another couple off as he heads down the Cooper Straight, yes, up the inside of the light green Mark Jackson Ford Puma. And then the next car will be Alan Wiltshire's Ford Fiesta, which he dives up the inside off decisively as he heads through Clearways and Clark Curve. So he's heading on to, in a second, his final lap of the race.
Peter Parkin's got very close to James Wilson all of a sudden. Onto the final lap of the race they will go, because Danny Cassol will pass them.
Well, he's going to lap everybody if that's the case.
He's going to lap absolutely everybody out there. James Wilson with a bit of a lock-up. The battle between second and third was 0.6 of a second. We still haven't got the podium decided. If Danny Cassol picks his way through the pair of them, all 32 other cars Danny Cassol and Nigel Ainge will have passed. What a present to Nigel Ainge. But all of a sudden, the battle for second place, James Wilson and Peter Parkin, they've been fighting amongst themselves and amongst everybody else throughout this race. All of a sudden, at the right time, they've come together.
They have, and if Danny Cassol doesn't lap them, it does mean that we'll get another lap for this fantastic battle for who might be second and who might be third. I think Danny Cassol's eased off on this final lap, so he's heading towards the win, but the two cars ahead of him are still trying to work out who wants to be second and who wants to be third. It's the Peugeot 206 of James Wilson that's still in second, but the Peugeot 306 of Peter Parkin is a little bit quicker in a straight line. They're about to head on to their final lap of the race, still fighting for second and third, but here comes our race winner. Danny Cassol wins the Coord Sports Tin Tops race here at Brands Hatch, and that's a brilliant birthday present, an 80th birthday present for his co-driver Nigel Ainge. As for the squabble for second and third, well, it's still the Peugeot 206 of James Wilson heading up in towards Druids, still being shadowed by Peter Parkin. And as they head then out of the corner and down in towards the braking area for Graham Hill Bend, Peter Parkin doesn't seem quite close enough at this stage. James Wilson is maybe a little bit slower through the corner than Peter Parkin. Peter Parkin also seems to have a bit of a straight line speed advantage, so the gap between the pair of them had opened up at the start of the lap. It's closed up towards the end of the lap, and they are still together now as they come round through Clearways and Clark Curve. It's still the 206 ahead of the 306, and on the run to the line, has Peter Parkin got anything else he can offer up to James Wilson? He's having a go, he's closing the gap, but he's not going to get there in time, I don't think. So it's James Wilson that finishes in second position. Peter Parkin, I think that's probably his best ever result in a Tin Tops race, finishing in third position. Adrian Matthews in the Volvo, number 132, was there in fourth place. And David